It is hard to imagine movies such as Star Wars or Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford, right? Well, there are other movies where we can say the same thing. Sometimes directors have an idea of who they want to appear in their films, but don't work out in the end, or scheduling interferes. Sometimes actors don't audition because directors already have a feeling they will work out in the long run. Check out this list we have compiled for you. For those of you who love ad-free viewing and free things, we're excited to announce the Premium Network. The Premium gets you early access to videos from Screen Rant, CBR, The Gamer, and many other great channels. Literally thousands of videos in one place with ad-free browsing. How sweet is that? Sign up for free at The Premium by clicking the link to start binge-watching videos from your favorite channels. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. If you haven't joined our notification squad, go ahead and do so to stay current with our other videos. Can you guess the film based off of these emojis? Find out the answer shortly following the video. Vin Diesel, Fast and the Furious. High-octane, fast cars, action, beautiful women, what's not to like? The Fast and the Furious franchise has gone on to become one of the top 10 highest-grossing franchises of all time. How many other franchises do you know that have made 8 movies? The massive success has to do a lot with Vin Diesel playing the role of Dominic Toretto, the street racing criminal who puts family above all else. If Paul Walker was still alive, the movies may be even better. R.I.P. Paul. It wasn't Diesel that was originally in the mix for the role, however. It was originally going to be given to Timothy Olyphant. If you don't know the name, he has been in Justified, Deadwood, and the Santa Clarita Diet. For unknown reasons, Olyphant passed on the part, and producer Neil Moritz said it was the luckiest thing that ever happened to them. No doubt. Now, while Olyphant would have been an interesting choice, Diesel was obviously the right one for the role. The first film alone earned $207 million on a budget of $38 million. It looks like at the end of the day, the studio executives chose the right man for the job. Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling, La La Land. Now, while La La Land may not have won the Oscar for Best Picture, it did win the hearts of people all over the world, largely in part to Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling playing the leading roles. If circumstances were different, we would have seen 2 different people dancing on the silver screen. Gosling got the call to play jazz pianist Sebastian after writer-director Damien Chazelle decided to change his original acting lineup. It could have been a completely different Emma on the screen had they originally settled on Emma Watson. Who was originally going to play Sebastian, you ask? Miles Teller, the star of Whiplash and Bleed for This. The reason that Chazelle wanted to cast Teller for the leading role is that the two worked on Whiplash together. Chazelle had said back in 2015 that the only thing he knew for sure about La La Land was that it would be a musical. Along the way, La La Land began to evolve, and Chazelle could tell he wasn't right for the part. Teller did not take the news very well. Watson, however, took the news a lot better as she was already cast for Beauty and the Beast, which went on to break the $1 billion barrier. In the end, it seems things worked out pretty well. James McAvoy, Split. James McAvoy gave a terrifying performance when he starred in 2017's Split, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, infamous for Signs and The Sixth Sense. Now, while McAvoy did a stellar job playing a man with 23 personalities and a 24th on the way, he was not the first choice. The role was originally going to go to Joaquin Phoenix, who Shyamalan had worked with on Signs. Phoenix ended up being tied up with another movie, so he couldn't take on the role. To make things even more complicated, McAvoy was committed to another role as well. Fortunately for everyone involved with the film, the actor's schedule cleared up and he was able to sign on. Stepping into the film soon proved to be difficult for the Scottish actor as he was tasked with playing 9 different characters. Due to the Phoenix fiasco, he only had about 1/4 of the time to prepare just one character, let alone 9. Despite the difficulties, McAvoy was able to do a stellar job and terrify critics and audiences alike. Split was Shyamalan's 12th feature-length film and grossed over $138 million with a budget of only $9 million. It is probably his most terrifying film to date. Joel Kinnaman, Suicide Squad. You may love it, you may hate it. Either way, you can't disregard that 2016's Suicide Squad has a pretty impressive cast. You've got Jared Leto, Margot Robbie, Will Smith, and Joel Kinnaman. Granted, Kinnaman isn't exactly a big name in Hollywood, but the star of RoboCop does a good job playing Rick Flag, the Special Forces colonel tasked with keeping all of the baddies in check. Kinnaman wasn't exactly the first guy to be chosen for the role. He was actually the last. The role was supposed to go to a guy who already had a DC film under his belt. That man would be Tom Hardy, the actor who played Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. He was pretty excited to be in a film alongside Deadshot and Harley Quinn. Unfortunately, Hardy had to drop out because he was going to be filming The Revenant alongside Leonardo DiCaprio. The Revenant was supposed to wrap up much sooner than it did, but unfortunately, weather put a damper on the project and was shut down for 3 months. Hardy's schedule was now out of order and he would not have time to do Suicide Squad. He went on to snag an Oscar, so things worked out for him in the end. Casey Affleck, Manchester by the Sea. In the 2016 critically acclaimed movie Manchester by the Sea, Casey Affleck owns the role of Lee Chandler, a man who struggles with grief and guilt in the wake of a terrible incident. Believe it or not, Matt Damon was originally going to be cast instead. Damon and John Krasinski of the hit TV show The Office dreamed up the idea and asked Kenneth Lonergan to do the script. Damon had originally planned on directing and starring in the film, but handed it off. It took Lonergan 3 years to write the first draft, and when he was done, Damon could not fit it into his schedule to direct it. Even though he still wanted to play the lead role, other projects got in the way and he handed it off to his buddy, Affleck. Damon told The Hollywood Reporter that it was one of the best roles he'd ever seen for a lead actor. Affleck would go on to win an Oscar, beating out Ryan Gosling, Denzel Washington, and Viggo Mortensen. Hugh Jackman, X-Men. These days, the Australian-born Hugh Jackman is one of the best well-known actors in Hollywood, most in part due to his role as Wolverine in the X-Men movies and the standalone films as well. Let's not forget he was also in Chappie, and he got to show off his singing voice in Les Mis. Jackman was lucky to be cast for the role of Wolverine, as it was originally planned for Dougray Scott. Scott had a conflict with scheduling as he was filming Mission Impossible 2, which was already behind schedule. X-Men hit theaters in 2000 and paved the way for a successful franchise. There are now 10 X-Men movies and 3 spin-off Wolverine movies. The X-Men film series is the 7th highest-grossing film series to date, grossing over $4.9 billion worldwide. It is set to continue in 2018 with the releases of The New Mutants, Deadpool 2, and X-Men Dark Phoenix. Now, while Jackman is not on the cast list, he has done well for himself over the years, and we will forever remember him as one of the most iconic mutants. Mel Gibson, Mad Max. Mel Gibson caught a stroke of luck when he was cast as Max in George Miller's 1979 movie, set in a self-destructing world. Now, while the Australian actor did have a little bit of theater experience in Sydney, he didn't have any experience in Hollywood. According to Gibson, he had given a friend a ride to an audition for Mad Max. Gibson had gotten into a bar fight the night before and had a face covered in bruises. George Miller liked what he saw and thought he would be a good fit for one of the villainous or offbeat roles in his post-apocalyptic sci-fi movie. Gibson appeared back on set a few weeks later with no bruises and handsome leading man written all over him. Miller took one look at him and immediately cast him as the hero. The Aussie-born man became one of the biggest movie stars of the 80s and 90s. George Miller created a great post-apocalyptic universe revolving around Max Rockatansky. After Mad Max came Mad Max 2, aka The Road Warrior, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and finally Mad Max Fury Road, released in 2015, where Tom Hardy starred as Mad Max. John Wayne, Stagecoach. Robert Marion Morrison, aka John Wayne, led an interesting life before becoming one of the most iconic actors of all time, especially for his roles in Western-themed films. To make ends meet while he was living in Southern California as a young man, he applied for jobs at the local film studios. Not showing up on the silver screen, Wayne caught his big break by becoming friends with legendary director John Ford, who pulled some strings and got him his first leading role. He then later cast him in Stagecoach. That movie made Wayne a star and gave birth to the Duke, the caricature that would follow him in movie after movie after movie. Wayne had a natural athletic ability as a younger man and joined his high school football team, which won the 1924 state championship. He later went on to USC, being awarded a scholarship, but unfortunately sustained an injury, body surfing, which forced him to quit. It appears acting turned out to be his true calling, appearing in over 171 films in 50 years. It basically equals a movie every 3 months. Charles Bronson, Clint Eastwood, and Sly Stallone all took lessons on badassery from the Duke. Jason Statham, lock, stock, and two smoking barrels. Before he became the action star that we know and love today, Jason Statham was a competitive amateur high diver who needed to pay bills by selling fake jewelry out on the streets of London. He was noticed by a talent agent while he was out selling his wares one day, which led to an audition with director Guy Ritchie. Ritchie just so happened to be casting his feature debut, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Apparently, Statham had just what he was looking for and was excited for what he could bring to the film. With a stroke of luck, Ritchie asked Statham to impersonate a street vendor hawking imitation jewelry. Now, Statham had not had any prior acting experience, but this was what he was already doing to survive, so it was not hard to do. What's easier than playing yourself? Not only did Statham land the job, but as you probably know, he is now one of the biggest go-to tough guys in Hollywood. As for Guy Ritchie, he has gone on to direct the Sherlock Holmes series starring Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr., The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and the recent release of King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Scarlett Johansson, Iron Man 2. Scarlett Johansson has secured her role as Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow in the Marvel Universe, making her first appearance in Iron Man 2, released in 2010. Little did you know she was not the first choice for the role. If you've seen Emily Blunt in Edge of Tomorrow or Looper, you could buy that she could portray the butt-kicking love interest of the Hulk, Natasha Romanoff. However, she had scheduling conflicts with Gulliver's Travels, so the part went to Johansson instead. Now that we've seen Johansson take on the role, it's hard to imagine Blunt instead. Things take a little bit of a direction in Iron Man 2 since the world knows that Tony Stark is the one in the suit. He faces pressure from the government, press, and the public to share his technology with the military. Now, while it grossed over $312 million, it was a slight disappointment compared to the first movie. It did come as a little bit of a surprise that Don Cheadle would be taking over for Terrence Howard as Lieutenant Colonel Rhodes, but with his reputation as an actor, he filled the shoes just fine. Plus, Mickey Rourke did a pretty good job playing the villain. Well, what did you think of this list we compiled for you? Were you shocked by any of the ones listed? Were there any that you would have added? If you've been anxiously waiting, the answer to the movie emoji is... Did you get it right? Don't forget to let us know in the comments section below and head on over to check out our playlist. Thanks for watching.